Hey there, Twins fans. My name is Seth Stoles of Twins Daily at twinsdaily.com. Welcoming you to another show here where we're talking with an affiliate of the Twins. Today we are talking we're talking Kernels with Kelvin Christoforo, their radio broadcaster, director of media relations, and all-around good guy. He's in his second season with the Kernels. We'll get to know him, and then we'll spend a little while talking about some of the players on the Kernels roster that he gets to cover on a daily basis. Without further ado, no one wants to hear me talk. Let's listen to Kelvin talk. Kelvin, how are you?
Good, Seth. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate you doing this. No, I think I'm right. This is your second year with the Kernels. You got to see a Midwest League championship last year. And again, this year, the team's off to a pretty good start.
Yeah, I've had a pretty good track record, of course, going 1-for-1, especially with the Kernels not winning in 29 years. I came in, and now my 1 year, the Kernels won the championship. So, no, I couldn't ask for a better start. So you're right.
Absolutely. So before we talk a little bit about yourself, I want to talk about last night's game. You're in Peoria, Illinois, and, CJ Culpepper's kind of had an up and down season. He got started about a week late, and he's been good when he's been there, but I know he missed a start recently too. I don't think he could have been any better last night. 18 batters faced, 18 outs. What did you see from him? I of course flipped it on in about the sixth inning when I saw what was going on with a perfect game. So I only saw one of his innings. Did you see right away something special was happening?
Yeah, it was just the confidence. You could see the confidence was there right away. And I think I have the book with me here, but I think 5 of the first 6 batters were ground outs. So I think it was a 7-pitch first inning. Got a lot of ground balls. And then after that, you can just tell he was pitching confidently, moving fast on the mound. I think maybe part of it, too, is, he saw Zebby Matthews, who was with the team, with the Kernels championship team last year, with Andrew Morris, who was on the Kernels championship team. Those guys both recently go to AA. And now, he's kind of the one from the rotation last year, kind of still, hanging around here. So he was really good. He was really confident. And like you said, he couldn't have been much better. I think at a stretch of 4 straight guys struck out, ended up with 8 strikeouts. He was awesome.
Yeah, and then Gabriel Gonzalez came in, had a couple of 3-ball counts, made you wonder a little bit, but he got through those with some lazy fly balls, a couple ground balls. I know Harry made a nice play on a slow roller to get the guy by about a half a step. And then came the 9th, and I don't know how much we need to talk about that, but Ricardo Gonzalez, who's been one of the best relief pitchers in the league, must have been pitching with a little extra nerves because he just couldn't find the strike zone consistently in that inning, but still got the 8-5 win. What was the tone kind of after the game? I mean, did the manager or the pitching coaches have any thoughts that you found intriguing?
A win's a win, right? You take an 8-5 victory. If Peoria would have scored 5 runs in the 3rd inning, it would just be a normal game. But there was some, little sense of, I don't want to say let down, but that was almost really, really cool at the end. And you mentioned Velez, who's been not only the best pitcher, one of the best pitchers in the Midwest League, but in the system. I mean, we have below the AAA level when it comes to appearances, to strikeouts, to ERA. He's been great. So I'm sure it was a bit of a different situation because he's usually brought in tied games, 1-run games. Not only do you have an 8-0 lead, you're not used to pitching with, and you're trying to preserve history. So I'm sure it was different for him. But a win's a win. Once the first guy got a walk and the second guy got a hit, at the end of that run, it's just, all right, let's get 3 outs and finish this game.
Yeah, and that became a little scary as well, but they did get the win. All right, let's talk a little bit about your background quick, and then we'll talk about players because, again, as you see on the scroll below, you'll notice there's quite a few Twins Daily Top 20 guys on the Kernels roster or that have just moved up recently to AA or guys that you might see fairly quickly. But let's talk about yourself, Kelvin. Tell us a little bit. I know you went to Syracuse. You're from Maine. What's kind of your background into the broadcasting game? Is it just something you always knew you wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, once you don't grow to 6'8" and you don't get 225 pounds of muscle, you figure the athletic dream is not going to take you to the minor leagues or the major leagues. So, played baseball in high school, broadcasted as well as in high school, and luckily my high school had a good broadcasting program department, TV station, and that kind of parlayed my journey from there to Syracuse, like you mentioned, and got it rolling from there. Spent 2 great summers in the Cape Cod League as a sideline reporter, one and a broadcaster for the second year with the Bourne Braves. Really cool that Tanner Schobel was on one of my teams, Kyler Fedko, Ben Etheridge, who's down in Fort Myers. Okay. They were all on the Bourne Braves teams with me, which is kind of a cool connection. Yeah. But some really good prospects, now in the pro ranks across different systems on the 2 teams I was with. So that was my first baseball experience, outside of playing. So yeah, that was great, and then that turned into this.
So you said you played baseball in high school, and obviously you're a baseball fan, right? I mean, in general, you're a fan, but taking this job, I haven't asked the other broadcasters this. Taking this job, do you get pretty excited to look at the rosters of the team that the Kernels are about to play to kind of see, okay, this is a top 100 guy, that their top 5 guy or whatever it is? Do you find that your fandom has grown through this experience, or is it just a completely different, non-related thing?
Yeah, it's a little different. I mean, obviously you want to see the top talent, and especially when you're at home and you have the home broadcasting rights to broadcast the home games on TV, right. Everybody's watching. So when Rhett Lauder came and pitched against us a couple weeks ago, I knew that I would have, I'd like to think hundreds of Reds fans tuning in to watch, knowing that he wasn't going to be in Dayton long, and he came to us. So that was cool. Even guys on other teams, like when Brock Wilkin has a big week in Cedar Rapids, I know, the Twins guys are going to watch it, always watching the Kernels, but Brewers fans are going to find that highlight and share it. So from that aspect at home, and then even on the road, right, you want to see the talent of what's out there. Like, okay, this guy is this organization's number 3 guy. How does he fare against, the Twins and the Kernels high A lineup?
Yeah. And I always encourage Cedar Rapids is about a 4.5 hour drive from parts of the Twin Cities metro area. From where I'm at, it's more like 11 or 12 hours. But, for those of you near the Twin Cities, make the trek. It's worth going down there for, say, a weekend or a Friday, Saturday type of a thing, or a Saturday, Sunday. It's not too far. Now that school's just about done, you got to make that trip down. Since I've been making, and before they were in Cedar Rapids, they were in Beloit. The first time I went to a Midwest League game, Mike Trout was in Cedar Rapids, but I was in Beloit because that's where the Twins were at that time. So I got to see him and Randall Grichuk, and more recently, Fort Wayne was there when I was there, and saw Fernando Tatis as like an 18-year-old or something. So you never know who you're going to see. I know when I was there earlier this year, they were with the Reds, and I was talking to one of the coaches about Cam Collier being on the team, and they're like, he's probably the 7th guy, or the guy we're 7th most worried about in that lineup. So you get to see really good players. So I can't speak enough about going down to Cedar Rapids. They've got great food too, by the way. So, what's been your Cedar Rapids experience coming from New England and the Northeast?
Yeah, it's been good. I get asked this question a lot, but for me, realistically, it's I'm at the ballpark from 9 to 11 Monday or Tuesday through Sunday. And then Monday, I kind of take the day off to relax and recharge, get some work done at home. So it's not like I'm out and about attacking the city too much, but it's been great. Host family's been awesome. I've had 2 different host families in 2 different years, which is a great thing for me to be able to plop down and not have to, tie myself down to the area when it comes to finding a lease and worry about, subleasing or stuff like that. So that's been great. People have been awesome. Like you said, the ballpark's been good. The stadium's been good. The Kernels front office has been good. So, and even the Twins front office people who I've interacted with, the minor league people, they've been awesome as well.
Yeah. Just a couple more questions about yourself, and we will talk about the Twins and the Kernels as well. but you decided to go to Syracuse, which of course is known for being a huge broadcast school, going all the way back to Bob Costas and all the way to Corey Provis and now yourself, and many in between. Was that kind of the school that you knew you wanted to go to? Did you have some other options that you were considering? And is this just kind of what you knew you wanted to do?
Not really. I kind of fell into it. I wanted to play college baseball, and I had options to do that at the Division III level. I actually early decisioned, which is like a binding thing, to a different school. I didn't get in, so it kind of shifted my focus onto here. I looked at my playing options and weighed it against the big name option of going to Syracuse. And knowing that I had broadcast in high school, something I wanted to do. So yeah, that's how that ended up happening. And I kind of fell into Syracuse. I really didn't know how hard it was to get in until it was in. I kind of just assumed that I would get in for some reason, which was a not real good assumption from me, but I kind of lucked into it that it happened. And then I ended up going there and taking the most of the opportunity.
And the last thing, I mean, you're only, 2 years out of college and, 6-7 years out of high school. A kid in high school right now, what kind of advice would you tell them as far as things to consider in a school or classes that you would encourage them to really pay attention in, or that kind of thing, or just any other advice that you would, now that you've lived the life for a couple of years, what advice would you give?
I think the number one biggest thing for young broadcasters, and this is what the Syracuse program is built on, is peer critique. Like, anybody can go out and call whatever game. You can go to Target Field and talk in your phone for 3 innings if you want to.
Yeah.
Anyone can do that. But if you go home and just say, okay, that was fun, I did that, you're not going to get better. You have to, someone that you admire, someone that you like their way of broadcasting, send them what you've done and have them, critique it, have them look over it. And then you go back to Target Field and you can do it again for 3 more innings. So, everyone says reps, which is huge. But if the reps aren't critiqued reps, you're just doing the same thing over and over again. So I think the biggest thing, and that's what the Syracuse kind of program is built on, is peer critique and critique from people that you look up to. And there's people out there that will listen to your tape. They'll listen to, whatever. And if they aren't, then find someone who's, around your age, who's trying to do the same thing, and send it to them. Like college people, college radio stations, get into all that. Have other guys in the station, other girls in the station, listen to what you've done and have them give them their thoughts, and then you can incorporate that into what you do the next time.
I really like that. Again, other broadcasters I've been talking to, they'll let you know you got to get in front of a mic. You got to just do it. You got to, be able to speak. You got to be able to write, because that's part of your, day-to-day job as well, with the game recaps and the notes and all that kind of stuff. But I like that the peer critique, being able to mentally handle a little constructive criticism, all of that I think is really important. So, but without further ado, let's talk a little baseball, eh? And if we want to talk about a guy that, there's a couple of guys on the Kernels roster that have been just hitting all year.
Yeah.
But right now, Luke Keaschall is on a 8-game hitting streak. I think he's got 3 hits in back-to-back nights, and I want to say 3 hits in 4 of those 8 games. In those games, he's hitting .529 with 3 doubles, 3 homers, 9 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, a 1,400-something OPS. And I looked as of last night, and I guess I don't have it as of today, but, that batting average, he's top 5, OPS, he's top 10 in all minor league baseball right now. I mean, what have you seen from him? I just feel like he's been so consistent, but he's got room to grow. I think he can be a well-rounded player.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like he's creeping up on anyone. I believe you guys have him as your number 9 prospect. Top 10 prospect in the system. And like you said, right now he's just on a tear. He's got 7 multi-hit games in his last 8 in that 8-game hitting streak. 7 are multi-hit games, which is ridiculous. it's just a confident approach, at the plate. He works really closely with CJ Baker, our hitting coach, in his first year. Those two are always together, and Luke is really, making the most of the opportunity that he has here. He's played every game on the Kernels. We played 41 games. He's batted first in every single one, which is something you don't typically see. He's DH'd a lot with some injury issues, keeping him out from playing some defense. But he's been awesome at the plate, and it's a confident approach right now. And I asked him today, is it difficult to DH? Because usually you want to continue your movement and your rhythm in the field in between innings. And he said it's been a little different, but he's very comfortable in his routine. He goes, I have a great routine that I know what I'm doing every time. And if you watch him taking at bat, his mannerisms are really funny. It's a similar thing every time. He drops down into a catcher's crouch in between pitches, pops back up, takes back in, slightly open stance right side, and he is just putting the ball in play. One of the funny things is, though, you look at his numbers, OPS up there, he's got 6 home runs. 5 of them have been leadoff home runs in the first inning, which is crazy. I think we had 3 leadoff home runs all of last year in Cedar Rapids, all by Tanner Schobel before he was promoted in July. But Keaschall's got 5 as we sit here at the end of May to lead off the ball game. So he's been good in that aspect. He's been putting the ball in play. A little bit of a slow start, which is, I think it was like 1 for 13 to begin the year, but that is way behind him. And he's found a groove, and he's just playing with so much confidence right now and focusing on putting the ball in play with a purpose. And he's been doing that over the past week and a half or so.
Yeah, he's just been unreal. I know when I was there, I got some pictures, and I put them side by side with one Mike Trout, and they're and I know that's not fair, and I'm not saying he's going to become Mike Trout, but there's so many similarities in the approach and the swing, and even in his build, that just are really intriguing. So, I mean, I think he's not just this little second baseman that you picture anymore. I mean, he's a big, strong guy. So, yeah, hitting 338, getting on base 45% of the time, 12 doubles, 6 homers, and essentially a 1-to-1 walk to strikeout, plus 14 to 15 to stolen bases. So,
yeah, that's something, too, that has popped out. And you look at his college numbers. He stole 30 bases at San Francisco. Then he not that he took away from the running game, but last year his power numbers spiked at Arizona State. He led the Pac-12 in extra base hits. He had 18 home runs, and now the two are meshing together, which is a crazy good thing and a crazy good storm for Luke right now.
Well, and you think about the way the game has changed in the big leagues and how power is emphasized. I mean, Keaschall, if he continues to do this, he could be a 20 home run hitter leading off and steal bases. So, I mean, it's all there. I know his numbers have come down. I'm going to move on, but Rubel Cespedes was our Twins Daily Hitter of the Month in April. Yep. What a month he had. Yeah, he slowed down a little bit, but still hitting 319, getting on base 41% of the time, 928 OPS, 10 doubles, 2 triples, 5 homers, and 36 RBIs. It seems like every time there's someone on, he drives them in. So, how has he been, I guess, in May? And what have you seen? I mean, he's become intriguing, if nothing else.
Well, I think it was an unrealistic thing to think that he was going to have an 1,100 OPS the entire year after his crazy April. And I talked to John Vitas about this. Not sure if you've had John on, the Fort Myers broadcaster, and we talked about this on Shameless Plug, the Kernels All Year podcast, which is our team's podcast. It's plugged at the bottom of your ticker. That, Zebby was a guy that, wasn't really considered a prospect. When he was first signed, he signed late. I think he was 18 when he signed. Yeah. But he's not taken that as you're just a guy to fill a role here. He says, no, I'm a guy that is going to work my way up this system. Past couple of years in Fort Myers, he's put his head down and he's built himself into a prospect. Led Fort Myers in games played last year, a lot of offensive statistics. And then out of the gate, I mean, in April, he was crazy good. And he mentioned he slowed down a bit. He still has a 6 RBI game in the month of May. He had a 7 RBI game in the month of April. He slowed down, but his average, it's down now under 320, I think, after a hitless night last night. For some reason, he struggles against Peoria, and I have it right in front of me just because I have the book from last night's game. he is 150 against Peoria. I think he's 5 now for 35, and he's 375 against the rest of the league. An interesting, adjust his side there. But no, he's playing with confidence. He's playing good defense, which is something too that made another really good diving play last night on defense, which is something that's come up as well. He played primarily third base throughout April. He's played a couple of games at second base, with the addition of Kevin Maiton and Rain Don Cohen here. So he's played a couple of games at second, and he's been good. He continues to make stuff happen when you're like, okay, he's got to slow down. He slowed down a bit, but is still up over 315 on the year. So it's a continued success for Cespedes, which is a good sign for a guy that, like I said, when he was first signed, wasn't considered to be too much of a big-time prospect.
No, but again, another guy that, I keep encouraging people, go to Cedar Rapids if you can. He's, again, not a little guy. And you talked about his defense. I know there's room to improve, but he's got a rocket for an arm too. So definitely one to watch. And I could go player by player here, and I'm going to do that for just a couple of guys because I think they are interesting. Ricardo Olivar, primarily catching. I saw he was in left field, about once a week, maybe a little less, a day off a week, because he's a catcher. He needs a day off every once in a while, DH here and there. But I was impressed by the type of at-bats he took. Now, I look at his numbers, 21 walks, 26 strikeouts. That's a lot of strikeouts, but I do think he's got pretty good control of the zone. He's got power. He's hitting 292. I'm not saying he's a perfect prospect, but he's got enough athleticism to play in the outfield. Not that he's a great outfielder, but as a catcher, he's got very good athleticism. He's, we've got him at number 20 right now, and that's, I think, where he is generally, 15 to 20, 25 range. I think he's got a guy that has a chance, and there's a lot of these guys that I think have a chance to be big leaguers.
Yeah, and I believe he's widely considered as the top catching prospect in the system. I don't know where you have him amongst other catchers with Noah Cardenas and Andrew Cassetti, amongst others who are having good starts to their year in Double-A Wichita, who we enjoyed having on our roster thoroughly last year. But Olivar has played left field in the past, but I think right now the reason why he's playing out there and he's DHing so much is he can't take his bat out of the lineup. Once Gabriel Gonzalez went down, he slid into the number 2 spot, and he hasn't moved. He's right now, I think, on a 14-game on-base streak, hitting 350 during that stretch. You mentioned the approach, too, and it's something that I've noticed, just watching every game. He starts really wide, and open stance right side, kind of slides that leg up. And then when he gets to 2 strikes, he narrows up, which is something to, I think, trying to, cut down on the strikeouts. But he's been good. You get the feeling that every time he comes to the plate, something's good going to happen. The past couple nights, he started 0 for 3, 0 for 4, but continued to get on base, got hit late. Game-winning hit in the opener here in Peoria on Tuesday, an extra inning RBI single. Had a big game-winning triple to beat South Bend a couple weeks back in extra innings. He had a 2-home run game with Luke Keaschall in the Quad City series, went back-to-back with them. First pair of teammates to have 2 home runs in the same game since 2021 for the Kernels. So he's been great. And like I said, Brian Dinkelman has struggled to take him out of the lineup, batting in the number 2 spot behind Keaschall with Cespedes behind him in the 1, 2, 3 spot in the order, which has been a great, not top-heavy order because the bottom has held its own as of late, but those 3 at the top have been really good.
So now I'm thinking, is that Wallner and Camargo, or is Isola in that group?
I had it. If you give me a minute, I can find it. I don't know if you can still see it.
Well, you're looking. I'm going to just talk a little bit about a couple of injured guys, and it's to avoid taking up too much of your time. Gabby Gonzalez came over in the Polanco deal. He's hitting 265. I think he was just starting to hit pretty well too when he went down with the back spasms, and he's been out about 2 weeks. And then Danny De Andrade. He's only hitting 243, but he does, again, another guy I think controls the strike zone pretty well. Doesn't walk a ton, but also, I think he has an idea up there. Gets on base. He does have more power than you would think. And I think he's a smooth shortstop, like a legit shortstop player. So as you're looking that up, I guess my question to you on those two would be, do you have any updates on how they're doing? I know De Andrade just sprained or rolled his ankle just fielding a ground ball. So he was just put on the IL, I want to say Monday or Tuesday this week. So he's likely out another week. But is Gonzalez getting closer?
I think not to go into it too much because I don't, have a full grasp on that. I just think De Andrade is closer to coming back. But I don't really have the inside scoop you may be looking for. I just think that, with Gabby being such a high-level guy, and a back is something that could, linger for a long time. They want to make sure that he's fully healthy to go before he gets back. And Danny, who, like you mentioned, I believe banged up that ankle earlier running for a ground ball. I think he might have even been there against Dayton when he did that.
It was like the second game or something.
So, yeah, I think they're going to, as they should with all minor league prospects, right, make sure they're all ready to go before they get back. But those two were you mentioned it, hitting great by the time or before they went down. But, yeah, so we'll see what happens. I don't have the real inside scoop on that, but that is just the gist of stuff that I get.
So did you find your answer to who went 2 home runs as teammates in 2021?
I'm going to need you to ramble for me one more time, and I'll find it.
Okay. We are going to jump to pitching real quick, and we'll try to do that quick. But just to mention a couple other names, Kevin Maton was a huge prospect, even more of a prospect, I think, than Junior Severino was back in the day. Twins just signed him out of an independent league. He's played 5 games for the Kernels. I know he's got a game-winning triple, and he's got a home run already, so that's kind of nice. A couple other guys, Keone Cavaco, 5 doubles, 4 homers. He's playing about every, 2 out of 3 at first base. He's a pretty decent first baseman. There's a lot of good players at this league. The only one I'm going to ask you about is Rain Dancan, and he's just added. He's played in 3 games. 20 years old, which I want to say is very young for high A, but De Andrade, Gonzalez, they're both 20. Some of the other young players on this roster are at 20 as well. So it's amazing how young they are.
Yeah, and Don Cohen, like you mentioned, just called up from Fort Myers, and he's had a couple of good at bats. He got a 3-hit game last night. All singles. None of them really hard hit singles, but they count all the same.
Yeah.
For 3 in the same game, had a hit in his first game. Haven't seen too much of him, but in Fort Myers, his numbers speak for himself. I think he still leads the Florida State League with 13 doubles on the year. So good start for him. He's played the first 3 games. He's been brought up. So we'll see how he continues to grow here, and we'll see what the infield looks like when De Andrade comes back. Yeah.
Well, one thing I mentioned to John Vitas when he was on, a week or 2 ago, on Don Cohen is that he just looks the part. And I don't think that if you were to go into the clubhouse, and he wasn't there when I was there, but I don't think he would look undersized at all relative to the rest of the roster. He's a big dude. He's strong and, certainly looks the part of a big leaguer.
Yeah, he's a tall dude. You got that right for sure. So, and for an infielder, he looks even bigger. Isola and Sabato is the answer to your question.
Okay.
In September of 2021.
All right.
So now that I can get that off my chest, I can continue. But yeah, he's a tall dude for a shortstop, and it's interesting when we play Great Lakes in a couple of weeks, and Noah Miller's on the other side playing shortstop, and Don Cohen's playing shortstop for us. That'll certainly be interesting. Of course, those two swap for each other with Manuel Margot in the middle of that deal.
Right. Yeah, that'll be interesting. And I do think Miller's been pretty solid this year. Obviously, no one questioning the Gold Glove defense. But real quick, and again, we're touching 30 minutes here, so I'd like to kind of keep it to another 4 or 5 minutes if you have time, and don't want to disrespect the time, but I want to talk about starting pitchers. And first and foremost, you had mentioned earlier, Zebby Matthews made 4 starts there. It was fantastic. Got promoted to Wichita. Andrew Morris made 7 starts, was absolutely fantastic. And I think he had one rough start that actually, he ended up with a 2.15 ERA. I think one of those games he gave up like 5 and 3 innings or something, which kind of altered that. But he went up, made his first Wichita start this last week. So I just high level want to talk about those 2 first. And I mean, what you saw from them compared to what you see like from Culpepper last night. I've been told, people are like all 3 of those guys have a chance to be big league pitchers.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Matthews was just, it's just so fun to watch because, sad the streak is over with the walk streak, but you knew he wasn't walking anyone. So, like, get in there. Here's 95. It's going to be in the zone. What are you going to do with it? And he was awesome. And we touched on when I chatted with him, 6'5", short arm angle. It's a deception thing, that quick hybrid windup, which we see more and more with the toes pointed towards third base. Just really good stuff. And I'm glad it's translated so quickly to Wichita. Which will change, when people get more tape on him at that level, they could adjust to him, but
sure,
he's been great. And then Andrew Morris as well. Morris, a guy that works almost exclusively from the stretch. Good stuff. His numbers speak for himself. And, you didn't mention Corey Lewis, who is on Wichita's roster, but ended last year with us and is on the injured list right now. When you look back at it, it's crazy that we had those 4 guys last year in a team that won the Midwest League Championship. So between those 4, we'll see how long CJ stays around here, but his stuff is really good. He throws every single pitch he throws is really hard. It's tough to tell when you just look at velocity. What pitch was that? High fastball velocity, high slider velocity, high cutter velocity. So everything is fast and moves, which makes him really tough. So the 4 of those guys, with Corey thrown in there, are quite the tandem that are either at or soon on their way to Wichita.
Yeah, and Lewis, just today, we're talking on Friday at noon or a little afternoon, just made his first rehab start of the season. So I don't know what his path will be. Maybe a GCL starter too, maybe a muscle starter too. I don't know if he'll get to Cedar Rapids, but eventually, absolutely, he'll be to Wichita.
Yeah, he's on Wichita's roster, so I would imagine he'll do that path. I would doubt he comes to us.
2 more pitchers I'll talk about, and then we're going to leave it open because then we can talk again in a few weeks and have some guys we haven't at least talked about. 2 newish guys. John Klein he leads the team in starts because he's been in the rotation the whole season already. He was a non-drafted free agent out of, I want to say, Northern Iowa Area Community College.
Iowa Central.
Sorry about that. But he's a Minnesota kid who was willing to sign rather than go on beyond the JC level. And he's been really good. 3-0, 3.06 ERA, 35 innings. I want to talk about him. And then Darren Bowen is the other piece that came over in the Jorge Polanco deal, Gabby Gonzalez. I guess the Twins haven't really gotten a whole lot from the other 2 that were involved in that deal. But, he's had some ups and downs, but I think just watching him, you see the stuff is there. It's kind of electric. So, but it's, those other guys have that too. So it's really exciting to see the type of pitchers that they're there. I mean, and I know Christian McLeod was great at Mississippi State. He had Tommy John after signing, and then last year was just kind of working his way back. I know he's had some blister issues this year already too. So, but yeah, do you mind speaking about Klein and Bowen just real briefly and what you've seen from them?
Yeah, Klein's been awesome. You mentioned Iowa Central Community College, which is a crazy connection with Kernel's pitching coach, Jonas Lovin, who was his pitching coach there. So they came over together. John's a big dude, 6'5", throws downhill. Just a solid guy. When you look at the Kernels rotation that began with Matthews, Morris, Culpepper, Bowen, and Klein and McLeod. And he's been excellent. Had a 6-inning shutout last week against Quad Cities, a game the Kernels scored in the first inning and won 1-0. So he's been awesome. And Darren Bowen, you mentioned this stuff is electric. It is. He had a rough outing his first go. He pitched in the Kernels home opener, celebrating the championship team, which is a tough spot for a guy making his organizational debut to come in and do that. But the thing that cracks me up with Darren is, if you go to see him pitch, and like I said, we encourage you to come down to Cedar Rapids and watch the Kernels. Get there early to watch his pregame routine. I've never seen a pitcher do what he does pregame, and that is just throw the ball as far as he can from foul pole to foul pole. He does long toss pregame in the outfield, so much so that there has to be a cutoff guy, so the catcher doesn't throw his arm out throwing it back to Bowen pregame, and that just shows you the arm strength and the electricity, the stuff that he has and has the potential to continue to have. So that's a fun thing with Darren, and both are really good dudes. Both have been pitching well, so hopefully they continue with the Kernels rotation, losing a couple of bodies to Wichita and potentially some more soon.
Yeah, and that's the reality. And if you look at last year, all of those guys except for Kyle Jones, actually, who hasn't pitched yet this year, started at Fort Myers and came up to the Kernels in the second half, or kind of spread out over a couple months there. But they were the glue on that championship run. And you've got a great coaching staff with obviously led by Brian Dinkelman, Baseball America's Manager of the Year last year. You mentioned Jonas Lovin and AJ Argula.
Angulo.
Yeah, there you go. Who pitched for Wichita just a few years ago. And then I bugged him and I said, shouldn't you still be pitching? And he tried to raise his arm up, and he's like, this is why I can't pitch. Couldn't raise his shoulder up. But really good baseball mind. And, the bilingual thing has to help. And then I'd never heard of. And, boy, he's really well respected from what I hear, too.
Yeah, and Jairo Rodriguez, too, on the former Kernel, longtime Twins farmhand.
Great guy.
On the hitting side as well. So those two guys together, Baker and Jairo, have been awesome with the hitters, which is part of the success of the team.
All right. Well, thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it. You've got a couple more games in Peoria, then you're home next week for a week. And then I looked in June, you've got 2 weeks on the road followed by 2 straight weeks at home. So those of you that are into more planning, either get there next week or start making your plans for the second half of June. Get down to Cedar Rapids if you can. So without further bugging you, I appreciate your time today, Kelvin. I think you're doing a great job. I enjoy listening, at least when you guys are on the home game, and I get to watch as well. Your production staff on MILB.TV is, having watched a lot of others now, it's second to none. It's just a tremendous job. I think the Saints do a really nice job, and I'm really glad Fort Myers now has it, and Wichita does. It's just a really good thing for Twins fans. So you're a big part of that, and I appreciate you doing this. And again, hopefully we'll do it again in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. And you can always listen. If you're in the car, you can always listen for free. You can Google Listen Live to the Kernels. And even when we're home or on the road, you can always listen for free if you're trying to listen to the Kernels game on the move.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks again. And as always, go Twins and go Kernels.